Okay, now let us get to the important topic of why I told you that insurance that you take does not really cover everything that you think it covers. See, every insurance policy largely has certain things which are covered after taking into consideration what is called normally a time excess. The time excess is different for different ailments. It's different between different insurers. So certain insurers may cover you for an ailment after say 2 years. Some other insurers may cover you for the same ailment say after 4 years. So you need to be careful. So what are these time exclusions that we normally have? 3 or 4 critical time exclusions that happen in any policy are the exclusion relating to pre-existing ailments. Now pre-existing ailments have been discussed ad nauseum. They have been discussed in every forum, in every court, but then again we still look at it lightly. I will give you the definition of pre-existing a little later in the presentation, but let us understand that ailments or illnesses that you had prior to taking a policy are not covered normally for a period of 48 months from the first policy that you take, provided that the cover that you take is continuously maintained. So if you have a policy which has been taken by you and which by chance breaks in the third year, please understand that your 4-year period starts all over again. So this is one thing you need to understand. Second exclusion is relating to the 1 year and 2 year time excesses. There are certain ailments which are normally not covered in the first and second year. It could happen that certain ailments, say for example, ovarian cysts, or it could be something relating to piles or something relating to appendix may not be covered for the first 1 or 2 years. So do not expect to get your covers in spite of being there. Obviously, I don't have it explained to you. Permanent exclusions. Certain illnesses are normally never covered. HIV is very, very rarely covered. Ailments arising out of HIV are not covered. Other things that you would normally not be covered are expenses relating to spectacles, prosthetics, etc. Though, again, if you take the effort, you will find that insurers have now started adding these value adds in their policies. So some of the new entrants who have come in are now giving you covers relating to something related to spectacles, something related to dental care, which was never happening before. Now it started coming in. The key exclusion, the 30-day exclusion. Every policy does not cover you for the first 30 days after you take the policy. So what is it that you really need to look at? Insure early and make sure you get into the habit of taking a Mediclaim cover very early in life if possible, and make sure that thereafter it goes on properly. Okay, now let's look at the concept of domiciliary hospitalization. Sometimes it happens that due to various situations, it could happen that a patient could not be taken or admitted to a hospital and he had to be treated at home. Earlier, most insurers would give you a cover on this based on a certain number of days that you would have to spend at home. It could be that you would have to spend at least 24 hours. The first 24 hours would not be covered. In some cases, 3 days would not be covered. Nowadays, most insurers have stopped covering this. So no one covers you for this. 1 or 2 insurers, I won't name them, are offering you these covers. But largely, if you are confined to a bed at home because of not being able to get a hospital bed, or because you could not be moved, it may be difficult to get a claim. Okay, the next critical exclusion is 24 hours. Normally, as I told you, all policies are now covering you for hospitalization. Hospitalization obviously means being admitted to a hospital for a period of at least 24 hours. You need to be at least in a hospital for 24 hours for your claim to be payable. Now, when we talk about the 24-hour exclusion, also I would like to tell you that some of these, most of the policies have a situation where the 24-hour period is waived for daycare procedures. When we talk about daycare procedures, the daycare procedures normally most policies would define them as procedures which do not require to be hospitalized for more than 24 hours, largely because of advancement in technology. So you have situations where you would have operations which are being performed possibly by laser or things like that, which require to go back in 24 hours. It is very likely that you may be able to get a cover for this, but check your policy, because most policies will give you a list of the daycare procedures which are covered. Now, again, as I told you, room and ICU caps. As the insurers are trying to control claims, these caps have started appearing. Sometimes, as I told you, the normal cap put in this place is 1% of the sum insured for the room rent and 2% of the sum insured for ICU charges. This is the normal uh, cap that is being put in by most insurers. Sadly, as I told you, some insurers have started now putting the proration clause where your claims are settled pro rata related to the kind of sum insured that you have and the hospital room rents that you are paying. Okay, doctor's charges are sometimes capped, but most policies right now are still reasonably free. Okay, now I therefore thought that now let's look at the situation that has happened for you. You have taken the actual effort of taking, looking at which insurer you've decided on. You finalize an insurer with your intermediary. You've gone and filled in the proposal form. You've tried to answer all the forms. The form has been submitted. You've got your cover. The cover has come in. I told you, you've looked at the covers. You've looked at the policy. All your names are in. Your ages are correct. All your any pre-existing has been defined, so on and so forth. Now the key issue is that I would still request look at the policy document itself. Normally a policy is comprises of three parts if I ever go into a situation of litigation. The proposal form, the policy schedule being the document on which your names and amounts of sum insured are mentioned, and the policy wordings. The policy wordings are normally part of every policy. Very often we find that most of the clients don't even have the policy wordings with them, but it is preferable you ask your intermediary if you can to look at and to give you a copy of the policy wordings, because the policy wordings, as I told you, are different. So what would be the clauses that you need to really look at when you get the policy wording? The policy wordings are sadly a little complicated, but they are normally 4 or 5 pages. Ideally, you must look at the following 4 or 5 things just to make sure that you are clear in your mind as to what you are getting into. I told you, you need to understand how the policy treats pre-existing diseases, how it treats single illnesses, how it handles copay. Okay? Now, what is a single illness? This is something that I think you must all look at. Every policy covers you for an illness which occurs during the policy period. Yeah? Now, it could very well happen that after you have been treated, you've come home, you are absolutely fine, suddenly you have a relapse. Now you have a relapse, you go back to hospital, you need treatment again. This single illness definition in the policy normally will tell you whether you are going to be covered under your existing policy as an existing illness or as a single illness, or this becomes a fresh illness all over again. This is especially critical when you are straddling 2 policy periods. Because say you got an illness in February and you get admitted in February, again you are admitted in say April, do you go under one illness or do you go under 2 different policy periods? The coverages will change. Normally single illnesses are defined differently by different insurers. Most insurers normally define a single illness as a relapse which occurs within 45 days of the initial illness, normally. Some insurers have gone ahead to extend this definition to 105 days. But again, same thing, therefore critical that you look at what your insurer says about single illness. Copay. Copay is again one more device which helps regulate or modulate the amount of claim payouts. Copay situation normally will arise when an insured person is asked by the insurer to pay a part of the claim himself. Now, this is something that we are seeing more and more. As I told you, it's happening in group mediclaims to some extent. Some of the individual policies have also now started having this clause. Just for your information, some insurance companies have started adding a co-pay clause for people beyond a particular age. So some insurers have a co-pay clause for people, say, who are beyond 56. There will be an amount of co-pay that has to be managed by him. So if you are in that age bracket, please do check your co-pay clause, because it's very likely that you may have to suddenly pay a certain amount of the claim yourself in spite of taking a good cover. Okay, then the key clause for you is adherence to timelines. Now this is a problem that we've been seeing now over the last 6-8 months. It's been giving a lot of trouble. Finally, the IRD had to step in. Over the last 6-8 months, we suddenly had a situation where large number of claims were getting repudiated by insurers on the grounds that the insured did not comply with the timelines relating to the claim documentation. Normally, the policies will give you a certain amount of time period within which you are required compulsorily to intimate the insurers in case of a claim and then submit your claim documentation to them. You have this period also varies from policy to policy. Largely, it is expected that you will intimate an insurer within 48 hours of a claim, and it is expected that you will submit your claim documentation within a specified number of days. Now, the specified number of days again is a policy specific period. There are some insurers who have really tightened the deadline here, and they are giving you only 7 days for this. There are some insurers who are giving you 30 days for this. Be very careful. Please understand that a genuine claim, everything done properly, you miss the timelines, immediately your policy comes into play, your claim is liable for repudiation. What is the law say on this? Every policy, what it does, the moment that this repudiation clause kicks in is, normally your insurer or his TPA will come back to you and tell you that you filed the papers late and therefore your claim is not eligible. A large number of insurers then give the power to condone the delay, especially in the public sector, with the insurance company divisional managers, and depending on the quantum of claim, with the regional manager on the head office. Very often it happens that even in the condonation process, we have seen hardly 2 or 3 out of 10 claims were getting condoned. Subsequently, the IRDA came out with guidelines which basically tells all insurers that you must not repudiate a claim only on the grounds of delay if the claim is genuine. So those guidelines have come in. Unfortunately, we are not seeing its effect on the ground as yet. Condonation has not really still been streamlined, and we are still finding that this timelines is becoming an issue for us. Okay, next issue that you need to look at is whether your policy has a grace period. See, what normally would happen is, I have told you now that it is of critical importance that every policy be renewed on time. You must renew on time. Do not wait till the last date. Preferably, make sure you renew earlier than the premium deadline. But some policies give you a grace period. Some policy may talk about 7 days. Some policy may talk about 15 days. Now, this is critical because understand that every insurance policy, whichever policy you read, the insurer will have put in a paragraph which says, it is not compulsory for us to issue a renewal notice to you. It is done as a matter of courtesy. In case you do not receive a renewal notice, it is not to be held as deficiency of service on our part. So please understand, do not expect that you will take the plea that what do? I didn't get the renewal notice on time, so I'm sorry. Do not do these things. The IRDA has now, again in the recent circular, tried to get that situation cleared. It has talked about a policy lapse as being one where the premium is not paid within 30 days of expiry of the policy. I am again repeating, this is not really translating on the ground as yet. We'll have to wait and see how this works out, but please renew your policies on time. The judgments have come in from various courts. A lapse policy means your policy starts all over again. Okay, now this is what I was trying to tell you. Check the actual wordings of the policies. I have taken for you an example from insurance policies from 2 different insurance companies. Now see how they are handling the situation of a pre-existing illness. Company 1 says it is any condition, ailment or injury or related condition for which you had signs or symptoms and or were diagnosed and or received medical treatment or advice within 48 months. So this is more positive. It says, it talks about an illness which you had or which you were diagnosed for or which you were treated for. This becomes pre-existing as far as they are concerned. Company 2 has a much wider wording. It says, any ailment, disease, injury or health condition which are pre-existing, whether treated, whether untreated, whether declared or not declared. Very often it could happen that you've got an ailment which you don't know about at all, and you've gone ahead with the policy, and suddenly it happens that the ailment springs up. So this definition gives it much more. Another critical area is the alternative therapy exclusion. While most of us normally would run to the nearest allopathic hospital, more and more people have started looking at alternative treatments or alternative methods of treatment. Insurance has not fully evolved to take cognizance of these kind of situations, though we are now finding that more and more insurers are including in their policies wordings specific to these treatments. Whether you call it a treatment relating to homeopathy or Ayurvedic or whatever, there is something which is now being included. As I told you, one insurer says the exclusion is for treatment for any other system. other than modern medicine. No other treatment or pathy is covered. No Ayurveda, no homeopathic, no nothing. You will only be covered for allopathic treatment. Policy 2 says you will not be paid for naturopathy treatment, unproven procedure or treatment, experimental or alternative medicine. Now this policy also has specific covers for Ayurvedic and homeopathic medicine. So it tells you that you are covered for an amount, say 25% for this kind of treatment. Again, I am telling you, if you are in that bent of mind, you believe that the alternative sources of medicine are also relevant, then please make sure you can look at these wordings as being important to you. Okay, now let's go to the claim process. See, one thing that, I would, if I was in your place, I would say that, I already have my insurance. How do I now do all this stuff? Luckily, I will get to the subject later on. IRD has now introduced from 1st October the possibility of porting a policy. So if you feel that you can migrate to a better insurer, the possibility exists now. You can take the opportunity given by IRDA and go to an insurer who may offer you better terms more suited to you. Anyway, the claims process. Okay, God forbid it's happened, you've taken the policy, everything is in order. Now you are confronted with a situation where you have a claim. You need to go to a hospital, you need to get treatment. What do you need to actually do at that point of time? So obviously the claim procedures become very important. The claim processes are normally given in your policies. It will tell you what you need to do. But largely you need to understand that you are first going to look at a situation whether your treatment is a planned treatment or it is an emergency treatment or an accident. Your policy looks at all three slightly differently. If you are looking for a planned treatment and you are proposing to go to what you call a network hospital. Now a network hospital is normally a hospital which has been approved and empaneled by your insurers for providing treatment to you without you having to pay any money upfront, which is the best way out. Recently you are aware it came in the papers about how a large number of network hospitals suddenly exited because the insurance company started coming down on the charges that they were paying. So you need to be careful on whether once you select a hospital, whether that hospital is a network hospital. The list of network hospitals is easily available for your insurer and you can easily just check up and see whether that hospital is a network hospital. If it is a network hospital, then you can automatically apply for what they call cashless. So you are supposed to make a request for a cashless thing, submit it to the TPA or to the insurer, and you will get a reply from them whether you are covered and to what extent you are covered. Why this is critical is that now, as part of the service paradigm that most of the insurers are following, they are trying their best to normally reduce the time that they take to respond to your cashless request. Recently, we are talking about some insurers who are saying that they will give you this approval within 6 hours of your sending them a request, which I think largely solves the problem, especially in emergency cases. However, in case it happens that your cashless request is not accepted by the insurer, it does not mean that your claim is not accepted by the insurer. It means that you will now have to pay the entire amount of money and then you will need to go forward and claim later on from the insurance company. So as I told you, you need to then be careful about the timelines that you adhere to and ensure that all the standard documentation that they require is given. Normally, standard documentation includes the original discharge card, your original hospital bill and other supporting documents. Please be clear, we've had situations before, patients have said something to the doctors while being admitted, doctors have noted it down and later on the patient comes and tells us that, you see, I don't know how he's written this down. I've had diabetes only for 15 days and actually he's written there 15 months and it's a problem, how does that happen? So this kind of stuff you please be careful about. The discharge card is a very, very critical document in a claim. Be very careful that you say the right things and that you do not end up giving wrong information. Recently, however, there have been some judgments where the errors made in a discharge card have been condoned in favor of the insured. I'll take you through those judgments a little later. Okay, now why do we normally get claim rejections? And we see a lot of claims being rejected, a lot of claims being chopped off, have a lot of people who are complaining. Why do we get rejections? Largely we get rejections, as I told you, delays in intimation, genuine claim, never told the insurers, I didn't know how to tell the insurer in so much time, I'm sorry, but then what do I do? Same thing with submission of documents, Very often we make it a process to keep asking our clients to ensure documents are submitted. Clients keep giving the excuse that you see the person was ill, there was no one else to look after us, so what do we do? Be very clear, because then at least make it a point to tell your intermediary or your insurer so that there is no problem in getting your delays condoned. Okay, then obviously the critical issue here is pre-existing on dental, because dental is one area where people assume they have covers, they don't have covers. Dental care is covered in most policies only for dental care arising out of an accident situation. Normal dental care is not covered, though I told you a lot of the insurers have started offering platinum products and better products. There they are giving you some dental care, so you can be careful on that. Alternative treatments, I've told you one more reason. I got admitted to an Ayurvedic hospital. I had this done, not being paid now. Okay, pregnancy related again is a critical thing for some sections of the insured. Good news is that some insurance companies have started covering you for pregnancy after 2 years. If you are in that segment, you may be better off looking for those kind of policies. Obesity and treatment relating to obesity, never covered. I'll talk about a recent situation we had. You must have read recently about a politician who went and got a gastric bypass done for obesity and diabetes. I would like to tell you that most insurance companies do not pay these kind of claims because obesity and obesity related treatments are not covered. However, if your doctor or your diabetologist has advised you a gastric bypass because of diabetes care, please make it a predominant issue in your discharge card and your hospital admission. I have recently got a claim passed for my client on this ground. We have been able to establish that the gastric bypass was done largely as a diabetes control measure. The clients had a very high level of insulin dependent diabetes, which luckily now has come under control after this thing. So this is one area which could be. One more thing is diagnostic. Lot of the claims that are knocked off are because someone was taken to hospital. What was largely done was some diagnostic tests were run, and after that there was no active line of treatment followed, and the insurers will then say there was no illness and therefore we don't pass a claim. So these are the top reasons that come in for this. Okay, let's assume you've done everything possible. You had a claim, you are not satisfied with the claim settlement. What do you do actually? What is a recourse? A lot of people don't realize that there are multiple recourses available. Again, it depends on the kind of insurer you are with. Largely now the IRDA has issued certain circulars relating to grievances. They have asked insurance companies to ensure that clients' grievances are handled better. They are handled by senior officials, that there is a turnaround time. You normally are expected to reply within 3 days. If not 3 days, not more than 2 weeks, depending on the situation. Again, I would like to say, unfortunately, our experience has not been very positive on the grievance cell. However, further than this, the IRDA has now started its own grievance cell. IRDA, for all your knowledge, has set up a website or a link on its IRDA website called IGMS, which is the Integrated Grievance Management System. It's supposed to take care of all your grievances, whether life, non-life, whatever it may be. It is supposed to help you with that. The only precondition is that you should have written to your grievance cell earlier, and you are approaching the IRDA after 15 days from that date. So that is a time period that applies. Once you've crossed that period, you can register online and lodge a grievance with the IRDA. There are specific grievance forms both for life and non-life, which you can access and receive. Ombudsman. Now this is a very powerful tool that is available to every insured who has taken a policy for personal insurance. You have to realize that the Ombudsman is an extremely omnipotent kind of institution. It's an institution which has been appointed by the IRDA chairman and a member from the life insurance side and the insurance company side. The Ombudsman has total power as far as retail claims up to 20 lakhs are concerned. Largely, the Ombudsman can either go for a conciliation or he can issue an award which is binding totally on the insurance company. All you need to do is you need to apply to the Ombudsman. I have quoted the guidelines. The guidelines of the circular relating to this is dated 11th November 1998. You can approach the ombudsman. Again, there is a time limit or a cutoff for this. You can approach the ombudsman only after 30 days have lapsed from your intimation or grievance filed with your insurance company. And within 30 days, either you have not received a satisfactory response or you have received a response where your claim has not been accepted. Go to the ombudsman. Normally, the ombudsman is supposed to resolve matters within 3 months. Ground reality is that the matter does not get resolved within 3 months, but 6 to 8 months, most matters are sorted out. We have an excellent ombudsman in Bombay at Santa Cruz in the Jeevan Seva building. He is very, very good, and we normally find that not only in our cases have we seen that the ombudsman gives very swift judgments, he gives sensible judgments, and very often we have noticed that he tells the insurance companies to make the payments within 10 days and 15 days so that matters can be sorted out. One more good and interesting development that has happened for all people who are in the retail segment is insurance companies have now started including an arbitration clause. Earlier, if you looked at it, an arbitration clause would normally not be part of retail products. It would largely be part of fire policies and engineering policies. Some insurers have started adding this arbitration clause. It's an excellent opportunity for an insured if you have a grievance. Arbitration is a very swift method of getting redressal. Please consider that if required. Then we have the consumer court. Consumer court is always there for your grievances or issues. Disturbingly, one new matter has come up in the consumer court, which is something that we are all trying to see how to address it. There has been a recent judgment. Normally, the time period for approaching the consumer court for a grievance is within 2 years from the cause of action. Traditionally, we have been interpreting this cause of action to mean the date when the insurer rejected my claim or settled it unsatisfactorily. Recently, the commissions especially in Maharashtra, have taken shelter under a Supreme Court judgment where they are saying that the cause of action is not to be considered as the date of repudiation, but as the date when the claim was filed. Now, this is something that becomes a problem because in a large number of cases, sometimes we see the insurance companies don't move for some period of time. If within 2 years they have not repudiated a claim and you have not gone to the consumer court, your remedy may be extinguished. Be very careful on this. Civil courts, we are all aware of, something that I don't recommend that normally retail people go for. Okay, I have talked to you already about regulatory intervention. IRDA has, on its part, every time that a problem has presented itself, IRDA has taken the effort to try and come out with some circulars on it. How much of it is translating on the ground, that is something that we will see. But a key document is the IRDA Protection of Policyholders' Interest Regulations. These are the regulations which actually govern how you deal with your insurance company. They will tell you everything about what is a proposal form, what are the contents of a proposal form, who is to fill it in, what is to be done, how a claim has to be filed, how a grievance has to be managed, everything. We often take recourse to this when we are doing litigation because this is worded very much in favor of the policyholders. Again, IRDA took cognizance in the middle of suddenly a large number of insurers either refusing to renew policies for senior citizens or asking for a substantial premium. IRDA had come out in 2008 with a circular which capped this amount to 75% and had also asked insurers to try and ensure that they do not force old people or the elderly to migrate to any policies which are unfavorable to them. Condonation of delay, I have talked to you about the subject already. The circular is very much in place. We are hoping for it to work on the ground. We have tried on our part. Every time that a condonation of delay issue comes in, we have tried to bring to the notice of the insurance company that there is already a circular in place, but we are still waiting for results. Portability, as I told you, portability is now a key area which has come up. Up till now, normally you are aware that because of certain time periods which are critical in the insurance policy, whether it's the 4-year period or the 2-year period, because of those periods, it was very important that a policy be continuously renewed, preferably with the same insurer. Because if you try to switch insurers, the new insurer would not agree to include the previous policy period into the continuity clause. While what is also happening is that if you take a policy for 3 lakhs today, please remember one thing, that if you decide after 4 years to go for a cover of 5 lakh rupees, the 2 lakh rupees additional premium, the additional cover which you've taken, the pre-existing period applies for that for 4 years all over again. So you need to be very careful there. But now with the portability guidelines, what has happened? With the portability guidelines, effectively, the IRDA says, if you decide to change your insurer, apply to your existing insurer within 45 days before renewal. You will continue to get the sum insured that you had in the earlier policy. For example, the IRDA says that, for example, in your previous policy, if you had a sum insured of 2 lakhs with a cumulative bonus of 50,000 rupees, and you move to another insurer, if he has to give you a policy for 2.5 lakh cover minimum. If he does not have a product which has a 2.5 lakh cover, he has to give you the next best level available. So say 3 lakhs. The only rider being that if he offers you a 3 lakh cover, the pre-existing clause continuity does not apply for the balance 50,000 which has now been added. That starts all over again. Otherwise, the 2.5 lakh continues. So there are lots of benefits in this. It also tells you that if you migrate from a scheme where you've taken, you had a policy for 1 year, now you migrate to a new scheme, there they have a exclusion for the first 2 years. There, the 1 year that you had before will be taken into consideration. So you will have only 1 year left in the 2 year exclusion. So it's a very nice circular, very well worded, has set a lot of guidelines for us. Legal interventions, I have told you, legal intervention is happening at all this thing. Every day we have situations where we are, this thing, today itself I was just talking to someone, there is a consumer court judgment which has been quoted about someone who has opted for some kind of alternative treatment for which resulted in treatment within for 24 hours without hospitalization. Claim was repudiated. The insurers have now been asked by the consumer court to pay for that. Satwant Kaur Sandhu is the sort of landmark thing which talks about this. Satwant Kaur Sandhu, basically Supreme Court says, if you are educated enough, you cannot take the grounds that I did not know. The insured in the particular case had answered to a question about health, in spite of having a chronic renal problem, had answered the question on health saying good health. The insurance company then said that you cannot take any kind of excuse and say that, I did not know and therefore this has happened. So they have very clearly defined, if you do not disclose all your details properly, you will have no option but to have a reputation staring at you. Same thing happened in UIC versus Subhash Chandra. A literate policy holder ought to have read the policy conditions. You cannot say, I did not know, I did not read. Again, I told you about continuity. Oriental Insurance versus Pankaj Jain. Failure to renew a policy leads to a break in policy. Everything starts all over again. I have taken the last 2 cases just as a matter of, as a counterpoint to the earlier cases. These are cases which have recently come in the papers. United India versus Kanhaiyalal Ruia. This was the thing that I talked to you about. In this particular instance, the doctor had written the patient had diabetes for 15 years rather than 15 days. And the court held that the corroborative evidence that was given by the patient clearly indicated that this was erroneous. There was no history of diabetes in the patient's previous case records, and therefore the insurer could not repudiate this thing only on the basis of the doctor's remark. Claim was paid. Very important, however, to remember that this is a critical issue. Now this is one more thing. This is again now defining what is material. In the case of National Insurance versus Suresh Jani, the person had a claim relating to liver cirrhosis. The insurance company during its investigations found that he was a regular drinker, and it repudiated the loss on the grounds that he had not disclosed his alcohol habits, and the alcohol has led to cirrhosis, and therefore the claim is not payable. In this particular case, the State Forum has said that there is no conclusive evidence that links his alcoholism to his liver cirrhosis, and therefore the claim should be paid. So again, it's a very important thing as to what you need to declare.